Welcome to the Waterfowl Den. My name is RD Reynolds, and I want to welcome you to the YouTube Live and the podcast. So, if you streaming this on any of the streaming apps, go check out RD Reynolds Outdoors on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, go subscribe to RD Reynolds Outdoor on any place that you stream podcasts. Today, our episode is brought to you by Matthew Knight with Satura Investors out of Charlotte. There's the information. The link to his website is scrolling across the banner down at the bottom, and it's also in the description. Today's episode is about helping business owners and working professionals like you who share a passion for the outdoors, shooting sports, zeroing them in to their long-term financial goals. So if you need any information or contact or any other questions, contact Matthew. Also, go check out Salt Creek Ammo. This triple curl TSS is some of the best TSS I have ever shot. This is for waterfowl edition. It's made for waterfowl. So if you're going to shoot a species that you've been chasing for a long time, don't use no cheap ammo. You pay good money to go on a trip. You got great guns. Don't cheap out on cheap ammunition. This TSS is amazing. It's got number 7s, number 8s, and he has number 9s. So go check out saltcreekammo.com. Here you will find any kind of ammo you're looking for. He has custom loads, TSS in 10 gauge, 12 gauge, 20 gauge, low pressure ammunition. You got predator ammunition, turkey ammunition, anything you're looking for, give Keith a call. Also to the channel, Kicks Industries, most people will know them as Kick Chokes, has came on board, and I have done a bunch of series lately on waterfowl choke tubes, turkey choke tubes, deer choke tubes. Go check out Kick's website, and you will see right there on the screen the choke that I am using for waterfowl season. I am using the Kick Smoke and improved modified and having great results. So go check out Kick's website for all of the chokes that can fit your guns. Flint Ridge Hauling Service, LLC, has partnered up with the channel. It is your go-to provider for all your hauling needs. They are not just any hauling service. They are an active DOT interstate hotshot hauling provider. Flint Ridge Service, LLC, prides itself in its reliable transportation services. This team ensures that your cargo is delivered safely and on time no matter the distance. Whether you need to transport goods across the county or state line, they have the capacity and the expertise to meet your hauling needs. Equipped with a smooth riding 40-foot air ride equipped trailer and a max hauling capacity of 20,000 pounds, there's no load too big or too small that they can't handle. So where you need to transport construction material, equipment, or any other cargo, look no further than Flint Ridge Hauling Service, LLC. Welcome to the channel. Today we got a special guest on board. Welcome to the Waterfowl Den. He may never been on a gun show channel before, but I promise you, as a hunter, we pay attention to the weather. So I like to introduce Adam Lucio, and we were talking earlier, and he said that's how you pronounce it in English. So the United States terminology, so that might not be the correct way we pronounce it in over here in the South Carolina, but glad to have you on board.
Thank you for having me. You got it right.
All right. So I don't know if you're a hunter or if you outdoorsman, but hunters and outdoors people watch weather like crazy during whatever season we're in. I'm a big waterfowl hunter, and I'm telling you, we watch them fronts like crazy. Anytime there's a front coming and it's coming towards us, can push some cold weather, we are ready to go. And we know that a front get storms, and that's what we look forward, pushing that cold air from Canada. But so, who is Adam? Give us some background on you.
Sure. I've been storm chasing for the better part of 15 to 20 years now. I'm from and I grew up in Chicago. So we weren't exactly the mecca of Tornado Alley, but storms always fascinated me as a child, and I wanted to experience them. I was drawn to their power. What separates me from a lot of other storm chasers is it wasn't fear. There wasn't like a childhood event that sparked my interest. It wasn't the movie Twister. It wasn't anything like that. I just thought storms are awesome. So I wanted to learn everything about them, go out and see them. And to me, a tornado represents the peak of the storm's potential. So I just started teaching myself everything I knew. And as soon as I got my driver's license, I started driving around, perhaps foolishly, in thunderstorms, and slowly but surely just learning a little bit more until I finally decided to go all in the year 2007. And since then, I've been at it ever since. Very dedicated storm chaser, always looking to learn more. Now, as far as the outdoors goes, I've never been much of a hunter, but I do like to fish. Fishing is kind of a second passion of mine. I love to fish. So I understand how the weather affects, the animals and the way they respond and the way they move and their seasonal behaviors to it. So weather affects all facets of outdoor activities, be it recreational or occupational.
That's right. The moon has so much effect also. I mean, it's crazy how much the moon and the weather has anything to do with animals and how they move. Uh, them blood moons, it just completely changes them. Which, I mean, in all fairness, it does change people too. So if you're law enforcement or anybody in the ER, you don't ever want to see a full moon. So crazy things happen.
I do hear that a lot from my friends who work in law enforcement and EMS services. They literally cannot stand when it's a full moon, and to me, that's just wild, right? They're like, "Oh, here we go! It's a full moon night," and they've got the stories to back it up.
That's a true fact. So where are you located now?
Right now, I am in Texas, a little suburb called Lakewood Village, kind of north of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro mess, as we like to call it around here.
I came down there hunting in, I think it was in early November, speckle bellies. That's the white fronted, what some people call tar geese that's got the tar on there. And I know you probably seen it on the radars a couple of times. These big, when I say packs of birds, I'm talking thousands. When they lift up off these fields, these farmers definitely want them gone because they mow down hundreds of acres. But you see these birds sometimes on radar, and you'll see the weather people, oh, it's not a storm or it's not rain. That's just birds doing their migration.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely pick them up on radar. Bats, birds, bugs, they all show up. Anything that beam will bounce off of, will get detected on radar. It's a pretty wild phenomenon.
So, was the early part of this week a busy week for you?
It was. I was out there chasing in Oklahoma this past Sunday. Saw a very persistent funnel cloud that just about every storm chaser on the planet documented, myself included, but none of us were able to confirm a touchdown there. So now I'm back at base, just waiting for the next system to arrive, which looks like it'll be Sunday, Monday of next week. But it's that time of year where we're rolling into spring, so it's only going to start getting more active from here out.
And we were talking earlier before we came on that, I'm in South Carolina, and I think we would have to go back and check the records, but I think we were the only state that didn't get no snow. And now it looks like we're getting that yellow snow. So if nobody knows what that yellow snow is, and you hear my voice sounding funny, please come to the South where everything pollinates, and it looks like it's raining yellow. I mean, it's crazy out here.
That is a wild thing to see. You literally see it like coming off the trees. It's like a fog, and it's just you realize you're breathing that in, and it's like, wow.
And it is crazy. The weather in South Carolina is like the thermostat on your car. You in the mornings you got it on hot, and then afternoons you got the air conditioning going. I mean, we went from 80 degrees down to 30 last week. I mean, my air conditioner don't know to go in air conditioner or heat mode, but that's the good old South Carolina in the South for you. But like you said, it is that time of the year that storms are really popping up. So I saw on your one of your social medias one week was your busiest time, and last year I think it was May the 3rd or May. You did like 3,000 miles in May.
That sounds about a week in
Yeah,
May.
1 week.
Some
That's
years.
what I
Yeah,
wrote. That's what I got wrote down. 1 week.
yeah, and that's that's not common. That's not uncommon when we get an active pattern. There's been some months where we go 6, 7, 8,000 miles. Uh, that's just the way it works. Lots of oil changes.
I
That's
was
for
gonna
sure.
say. I was gonna say. How many oil changes you go through in a year?
At least a dozen. At least a dozen.
At least them are probably open road miles, but I guarantee you probably do a lot of hard driving too. I mean, like on the gas, on the brakes.
Oh yeah, and it's a lot of dust too. Even when it's not raining, when you're chasing tornadoes, typically
Right.
involves a weather pattern that's windy. So you're getting a lot of dust and dirt blowing around too. And yeah, even though it's highway miles, but they're dirty miles. Absolutely, like you said.
Is this your busiest month?
March typically isn't. Typically May and June tend to be the busiest months where things really uh, become more consistent. This time of year, weather systems, they're kind of on and off. You'll get a busy week, and then it's quiet and cold for a week, and then you get another system that comes through for a couple days, and then it gets cold again. While winter and spring are still battling it out, but as we move into late April and May and June, we're consistently warm, we're consistently humid. There's always severe weather happening somewhere in the country once we get into late May, June, and even July. July is a very underrated month for storm chasing. So I'm usually quite busy through July as well.
Really, I never thought July would be. I guess cold fronts maybe.
Yeah, especially up there in it's not that the weather slows down, it's that it just changes location. So,
Mm.
in July, we're up in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, sometimes even Illinois, Iowa. It's the northern part of the country as the jet stream migrates throughout the year. It never really slows down, it just changes locations.
At least being in South Carolina, we don't have to worry about Tornado Alley because typically, and you see it in the snow also, when it hits them mountains, it really slows down, which is a good thing for us. But it's the same way with the snow. It's coming over through Tennessee. It hits that mountains. We hardly ever get snow. We get our snow when it comes through Georgia, which
Yeah.
we didn't. It didn't happen this year, which I still got my fingers crossed, but I don't think it's going to happen this year.
It would be
Uh,
fitting to work that way. Now that it's spring, nobody wants winter. Like we're having a
no,
cold pattern now in March. Like January, February, nice and mild, right? Gets us all in the
right,
mood for spring. And now that it's March, it's cold.
right, and then you start getting storms and winter and frost. At this time, you start hurting people's that's already started their seedings for gardening. A lot of farmers are already got stuff growing. Stuff is starting to bud. That really starts hurting stuff. So I really don't want nobody's produce to get hurt over a little bit of snow. So, how many states have you covered in your weather adventures?
Oh, just about all of them, except for maybe the West Coast and the East Coast. So probably about 40 of the
Wow.
50. I mean, we'll go wherever, like, I go wherever the weather dictates, from Montana, New Mexico, if it's Georgia, Ohio, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin. I've been to just about all of them.
So, you're working on if I say it correctly, like a version 2.0 of your storm tracer vehicle. Is that what you're working on now,
Yeah,
project wise?
I call it 3.0 because my last three vehicles have all been Ford Expeditions. So the first one, which was a 2006, was 1.0. Then the second one I bought, which was a 2016, that one became 2.0. Now I just bought a 2021, so it's 3.0. You know, I'm very clever with the names that I come up with. But I just purchased it at the end of February, so it's been a bit of a crunch to try to get it ready, and I'm still waiting for parts to arrive via shipping. So I really need to get this done, but I can't do nothing about the shipping.
It's a 2021. Does it hurt to buy a newer? I know it's not a 2024, but I mean, that's pretty new. Most people would want a 2021. Does it kind of hurt to know that, man, I'm buying this vehicle and it's going to get pounded by hell?
Yes, it hurts. But I get asked a lot what the most important piece of equipment is when you're storm chasing, and it's your vehicle. You got to have something reliable and newer. And I'm not going to be putting around out there in a 15-year-old vehicle that's a hazard to breaking down, because that's not only a hazard to myself, but it's a hazard to other people as well. True. You know, I'm not an auto mechanic by trade, so I can't lift it up there and fix my radiator if it breaks in the middle of Nebraska. I'm a weather guy. I'm not a mechanic, so I've got to get something reliable.
That's very understandable. I mean, you don't want to get on the gas and it just cut off on
you. Absolutely.
You would be in the movie Twister then.
Mm-hmm. Not intentionally either.
How many? Well, you might get good footage. But how many windshields and windows do you typically go through in a year?
2, usually. It's usually 2 windshields. Once in a while, I'll break the back one. That's kind of every other year. But on average, it's about 2.
A person online, which I know them, but Sherry probably wants. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Sherry that asked the question. She wants to know, what's your favorite state to chase?
Illinois.
Illinois.
Not only
what makes it special?
For one, I'm from there, from Chicago, so you have that that bias towards home. You always do. Right. But Illinois is the second flattest state in the country. Not a lot of people know this. The terrain in Illinois is some of the best out there for chasing. It's very flat. There's a lot of farmland. And Illinois, unlike many other states, have a lot of paved, gridded road networks. The road network in Illinois is like a checkerboard, and it's paved. You have a paved road every mile. There's internet data just about everywhere. It's just one of those states where it all comes together and makes chasing a little bit easier. Otherwise, I like to chase in western Kansas. Again, very flat, very open. But you have some road issues out there in western Kansas. A lot of dirt roads, mud roads that make things a little bit more dangerous and difficult. Illinois, when you get a storm, is just generally a really good state to chase in.
Yeah, I know. Going out to Texas, around South Carolina, we got streets named after people, weird names. They're typically names. But when you get out to Texas, I mean, they're just numbers, like SR 100, SR 2. And I'm like, man, I got about lost out there because it's just numbers. Like, it's hard to keep up with. I imagine going from state to state, and you got to have some kind of good GPS.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, they have SR for state road, CR for county road. And the thing about Texas is the roads, they change names a lot. So it'll be County Road 800, and then you'll get into a different county, and suddenly it's County Road 5. That's taken me a minute to get used to. You have 5 different names for the same road, and everybody calls it something different. So when they say, "Oh, take this," I'm like, "You mean this?" And they're like, "No, that's this," and so on and so forth.
And we didn't even say the number. So, like, when you're looking for a house, it'd be like 1,452 State Road 506,002.
Exactly.
And it's like, how do you even put that in a GPS? And then it is definitely something different. Have you ever been scared doing it? How many times you get scared?
There were probably there's always 3 times. There's always 3 instances that come to mind where that moment of fear kicks in. The first was in 2010 in near Bowdle, South Dakota. We got chased onto a field by 2 tornadoes because the map that we were using showed a road that actually wasn't there. So we had 2 tornadoes on each side of the road, and we were trying to make our position, but the road ended. So and it was a dirt road. So when we turned around to go back, another storm chaser who was chasing in a car got stuck on the dirt road. So we were blocked from being able to go back and get out of the way. So we were forced onto a field to try to get out of the path of these two tornadoes. And because it was raining, the field turned to mud and we all sank. It wasn't just us out there. It was like 10 of us out there.
Yeah.
So that was time number one, because we were literally, there was nothing we could do. It was just, we just had to hope that the tornado didn't move over us. We were stuck. That's number one. Number two would be Wayne, Nebraska in October of 2013. I had misjudged the trajectory and the speed of a 1.4 mile wide EF4 tornado.
Wow.
If you followed me for a while, you've seen this video. And I basically got clipped by the outer circulation of this EF4 wedge tornado. I threw it in reverse to back up out of the path, and my back window blew out. And it was at that moment where, you have those thoughts like, uh-oh, this could be it if I don't get out of here. But I've actually practiced that. I've driven in reverse down my street in Chicago as fast as I can, thinking that maybe one day I'm going to need to do this. So I actually practiced for this. It's like I always knew somehow I'd find myself in that situation. And then number three would be near Elkville, Illinois in 2017, a big nighttime EF4 tornado. And we're sitting in front of it. Now, if you don't know too much about how tornadoes move, if a tornado is moving left to right, it'll pass in front of you. If it's moving right to left, it's going to pass behind you. If it's coming towards you, it's just getting bigger and it looks like it's sitting still. So we're watching this tornado in the dark. And in between each flash of lightning, all we saw was this. And that was a moment like, holy cow, this thing is about to mow us over. And you hear it in my voice in the video, like, we have got to get out of here. But we did. We at least know, we have at least some advantage of generally knowing how tornadoes move and how to navigate them. But Mother Nature will always try to flip the cards on you whenever she can.
I mean, when a thing's already a mile wide, I mean, you got to cover that mile also, and debris.
Absolutely. And then you have RFD winds, which can be over 100 miles an hour as well. It's not just the tornado. You have rear flank downdraft winds wrapping around that tornado that can be just as impactful.
And it can spin off other tornadoes too, can it?
There sure can. You can have satellites. You can have, storms go through, supercells go through what's called a cyclic meso handoff process. And you can have, your tornado suddenly turns to the north, and then a new one forms in its wake. There's all different types of processes that can happen that you've got to anticipate and watch for.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'd probably be in the passenger seat screaming like a little girl. I'm just saying. So you said you watching the next storm, but what really gets you going on these storms? Like, I know you look at the radar every day and you're looking at stuff predicted a week out, but like, what's something that pops up on the map or the radar that you be like, whoa, I'm ready for this?
Yeah, that's a really complicated answer, but the first and foremost is there a good tornado potential? Obviously, if tornado potential, I'm there. First and foremost. After that, I like hail, structure, all that, everything involved with storm chasing. But I am not a rich man. I don't have an unlimited budget. So if there's not tornado potential, I have to see where it is. Is this a setup that's going to be beautiful supercells that I could take good pictures of? Is it going to be big hail? Is there going to be something worth documenting to make the trip worthy of the money that I have to spend to go do it? If I had unlimited resources, I would chase every day, every setup under the sun. Never stop chasing, as they say. But fortunately for most of us, we live with a budget and we have to kind of weigh all these factors. How far is it? What state is it? Do I have anything I need to be home for, in the next couple days? Things like that. So, the degree of tornado potential is always the heaviest factor when deciding on which systems, you're going to go after and chase.
Yeah, because you're covering a lot of miles, and I guarantee you, just the difference between South Carolina and North Carolina, taxes on gas fuel is just crazy between the two states. And when you're covering multiple states, I imagine you see $2, well, $3 gas, $4 gas, 3.50, and you're like, man, when do I stop? Oh, I can't stop. I got to keep going. So I'm sure you see a lot of crazy stuff on the road.
Oof. Yeah, gas prices we watch like a hawk. And fortunately for me, I've been doing this so long. That's like I know where all these little cheap kind of random stations are throughout some of the states where it's like, oh, this town is cheaper than this town. So you can kind of at least plot it in your head to save 20 cents a gallon here and there. It changes dramatically, state to state, as you've mentioned. So it's just the longer you do it, you start to remember some of these things like, well, if I stop in Wichita Falls, Texas, gas is 20 cents cheaper than if I stop in Vernon, Texas, which is 20 miles down the road. You start to remember these things, and it's all about trying to do the best budget that you can for yourself. That gas gets over $3 a gallon, and I start hurting.
I bet so, because I mean, you putting some miles on, and that's pretty crazy. And then when you get around Texas area, there's a lot of Wichitas. You got Wichitas in Texas, Wichitas in Oklahoma. It's like you hear people talking about the storms, and you're like, oh, it's over Wichita. I'm like, okay, or what state? And
Yeah, you have
so they
Wichita
zoom
Falls.
out. Yeah, they're
And then
getting.
you've got the Wichita Mountains. You have Wichita, Kansas. Like, yeah, there's all in that little small area.
Yeah, it's like they copied each other's name. Like they just set up here
Mhm.
and then moved here, and hey, let's just name it the same.
It's like me with my vehicles 1.0, 2.0, 3.0.
Hey, when you got a good thing, why change it? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so what was top three things you saw in 2023?
Last year, I actually just put out my top 10 video.
I saw
About
I saw that video.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago. So number one was big giant wedge tornado in Spalding, Nebraska. That as a storm chaser, that big photogenic huge tornado is always the thing that we're after, especially one that just mows through fields. That thing just tossed around some tumbleweeds. I think it knocked a couple telephone poles over. Didn't really hit anything, so that is perfect for us. We don't want these things to hit towns, so we're always looking for that big giant photogenic tornado that's not doing any harm to anybody. It's just tossing dirt and that sort of thing. So that was number one. Number two, I saw a lot of gorgeous storms in New Mexico and Nebraska. If I move my head, this tornado here was in Gordon, Nebraska on July 18th. And we were driving back from South Dakota. We were the only people there. All the other storm chasers were up in North Dakota. So this one, look at this. This is why I don't do the thing on TV. I don't have
I
the
do it too.
coordination. It's like, wait a minute. So that tornado will always be special for me, just being the fact that we were the only ones there. And it was beautiful. It was photogenic. And it too was just moving through the sandhills of Nebraska, one of the most desolate areas of population in the country. There's less than one person per square mile out there. So it's just moving through the sandhills. Gorgeous. We were the only ones there to see it. So that one for me will always be extra special. And that's why it's on the wall. There we go. I did it again. That's why it's on the wall right there. This one, of course, being a supercell in South Dakota from 2019. It takes an extra special storm to make it on the wall.
How many times do you get it wrong, or chasing something getting it wrong?
About 50% of the time. As they say, it must be wrong, or it must be nice to be wrong half the time and still get paid. Well, newsflash: storm chasers don't get paid when we're wrong. But I mean, it's weather. It's sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong, and for every victory, there's an even worse failure. Last year, March 31st, last year, third largest tornado outbreak in history. Me and my crew, we missed every single one of them. We picked the wrong storm. 100-something tornadoes happened that day. We didn't see a single one. We just picked the wrong storms. I mean, it happens.
These days, especially with the weather channels, not the weather channel, just weather channels, and typically, they always saying, tornado, what is it, Terracons, a 3, a level 4, and 5. Sometimes I wonder if they're going too much and things don't happen. Does people start? It's just a 2. It probably won't happen today, and you know I do think our technology has got a lot better, so I'm sure that does help. But they get it wrong too sometimes, and what can you do about it?
Yeah, I mean, everybody gets it wrong. Even the best, brightest minds in the field will always get it wrong. It's weather. I don't think we'll ever be able to get it 100% right. If we ever do, then the computers will be doing it, and the humans will be out of it. If we could accurately predict tornadoes when and where they would happen, it would be like the eclipse that's coming up. And everybody would know where to go and when, and there would be traffic nightmares from everybody wanting to see it. So, for one, I don't think we're ever going to figure it
That's
out.
true.
For number two, I hope we don't, because of what that's going to do. If you tell me a week and a half, hey, this beautiful photogenic tornado is going to happen here, everybody's going to want to come out and go to that one spot and witness it. It's just human nature. We're curious like that. And as
That's
far as
that's probably a true statement. I probably would. Now that you say it like that, I probably would be like, "Hey, it's going to snow." Everybody goes to the mountains to see the snow. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a good point. And I know that hearing some other people talk about storm chasings, I hear that there's like vans set up that takes people's money to drive them into storms to see that kind of stuff. Like they
Yeah,
have
go ahead.
like they have a business chasing the storm, but not like what you're chasing it. They're just chasing it because they got clients in the back wanting to take pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually guide for one of those companies a couple of weeks
Really?
out of the year. The company's called Tornadic Expeditions, and I'm a tour guide. I guide 2 tours every year, usually in late June and July. As a matter of fact, see, I did it again. Both of these images were on those tours. Actually, the one in Nebraska was after the tour had concluded, but this was a storm that we saw on tour. There's a lot of curiosity. A lot of people want to see a tornado. There's nothing wrong with that curiosity. But for some people, they don't have the time, the patience, or the gumption to about it the way I do. For a lot of folks, it's just a bucket list thing. Like, oh, we want to see a tornado just to say we saw a tornado. They pay, and they're not cheap. These tours, they sell out every year. Every year, it's a full sellout. The vans are full. And we guide them out, we take them out, we teach them about weather. A lot of them actually start coming back year after year because they get hooked to the storm chasing lifestyle. Just that's all the different places that you get to go. Some of these places we go, we would never go otherwise. But there's a lot of cool things out there to be discovered that storm
I
chasing.
mean, it's an adrenaline rush too, though. I mean, it's just like hunting. I mean, we see deer or birds or turkeys out of season, and it's like, oh, but during season, it's like your heart's beating. It's an adrenaline rush.
Yeah, it is for about 30 seconds, and then you're driving in the car for the other 8 hours going, I got to go to the bathroom.
Well, as hunters, we do that too. Uh,
Exactly. So
you,
you know how that
you
feels.
Oh, absolutely. And we talked earlier, being at the top part of the state, we don't have a whole lot of waterfowl. So we drive a lot. We'll drive all the way to the coast and we'll drive like 3 hours and we get down there and we might see one bird. And it's like, I can't believe we drove 3 hours and then come back for 3 hours for one bird. But we get up and do it the next weekend again. So, I mean, endless
I've,
cycle.
I've done it. I've driven 12 hours to a different state when the sun stayed out the whole day. And I said, well, that was great. I drove 12 hours to go eat at Applebee's and then come back home. Didn't even see
Hey,
a cloud.
now that's what one of my buddies that hunts with me, he's like, you just base it off of where we're going to eat at. And
Mhm.
that's the truth. Hey, if it's going to be a stinky, at least let's have a great meal. I'm always about eating, so I'm sure you find some interesting restaurants along the way too.
Oh yeah, there are some great local gems out there, and one of my favorites, the little town of Harve, Montana. I can't remember the name of the diner, but it only had room to seat 12 people. That's how small this place
Wow.
was. But they had, and I never heard of this. They had a stuffed French toast sandwich where it was like stuffed with cream cheese. And I said, "What?" I said, "It was one of the best dang things I ever ate in my life." In
Wow.
this tiny little Montana town, population like 40, where the restaurants only open like 3 hours. I mean, it's just the things you discover. It's great. That's part of the whole. It's part of the whole adventure of it. It's not just about the storms, but it's you get to travel America and see so many great things, meet a lot of cool people.
And I'm sure you go across all the states that's got barbecue. So
Oh yeah.
mustard base, or vinegar base.
Oh, see, this is where I got to go with the Texas barbecue. That sweet base. Now I like the Carolina barbecue, that vinegar base, but man, that the Texas barbecue reigns supreme in my world.
I'm a mustard base kind of guy. I like that mustard base.
Is
Um,
that considered part of Carolina barbecue? I've never heard necessarily mustard base. I know
it's
I know
it's
the vinegar base is
right.
popular out there.
There's a lot of vinegar. The it would be more yellow, the musterish, um, real around Columbia kind of area, but I would probably say most of the states probably vinegar based, and I
Mhm.
think a lot of North Carolina is vinegar based too.
Yes, when I was out there, everything was vinegar based on. It was delicious, just delicious. Don't get me wrong, but that Texas sweet base uh, brisket just hits different. So good.
It is crazy how much difference the same barbecue. It's the same barbecue,
Mhm.
but it's cooked 14 million different ways wherever you at in the states.
Mhm. That's one of the great things about it. It's a different culture. It's a different angle. It's a different, and you appreciate each one for what it is. The culture and the style and the technique. It's all different, but it's all delicious.
So what's one strange thing that you've seen so far in 2024?
One of the strangest things
Yeah.
so far, probably a nighttime tornado in Illinois in February.
Wow.
uh, so far, I mean, it's not unheard of, but it's you don't think of like, well, this is how my season's gonna start, right? So it's not unheard of. It's just a little different. Now, for
So
me
for you,
personally, go ahead.
so for you, is it what is better, nighttime tornadoes or daytime? I mean, I would think. I mean, I know that during the daytime it's going to still get darker, but photo wise, what is the difference? Don't what I'm going to say. What is the difference between nighttime and daytime tornadoes? And obviously, I'm not talking. Well, the sun's down, but what is the difference?
The tornado itself, there's really no difference. It's just in how we're able to document it. So yes, daytime by far is supreme. Now, nighttime tornadoes, it's like, yeah, you see them, but it's hard to get good pictures and good video of them. So they always leave a little bit. There's always that little piece of it that's missing. It's like, well, here's my shot of the nighttime tornado. You got to squint to kind of see it and find it, and you're there to do the job and document it, where it's going, and report where it's going. That still needs to be done. That's important work. But you'll probably never see a nighttime tornado hanging on my wall, just
Right.
because there's nothing visually stunning about it. You just know that it's there, uh, doing its thing. So daytime tornadoes by far.
It seemed like
Take the winner on that
night.
one.
It seems like nighttime would be harder and more dangerous for y'all because you're traveling roads and like you see the videos of the tornadoes at night and you really can't see how big they are until either lightning or a transformer blows up and it's like wow, and then it like goes away. And I would feel, just me, it would be more scarier at nighttime.
Oh, absolutely, it is. It certainly ups the ante, makes it a little bit more dangerous, makes it more difficult. That's for sure. That's why number three in my top three, scary moments. One of them was a nighttime event for that reason. It was we just getting bigger and bigger and bigger between every flash of lightning, and it's harder to gauge the path when you can't see it constantly.
Do you think, and I hear this topic a lot too, do you think Tornado Alley is shifting? Like, is it moving or has it always been moving and nobody's just been documenting it?
That is such an interesting topic of conversation because there's so many factors that go into this. I personally don't think it's necessarily shifting. The perception comes from the fact that we understand and document these lesser tornadoes better than we ever have before. Everybody's got a camera. Everybody's got, there's more storm chasers out there than ever. So where we are documenting the smaller, weaker ones better than we ever have before. And the further east you get, the more of these occur. So now that we're able to pick these out better, if you look at the number of like strong to violent tornadoes, the EF3s, 4s, 5s, those really haven't changed. You look at where they were in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, there's really not that much spatial difference between those strong to violent tornadoes. But when you start plotting the weaker ones, suddenly you're seeing a lot more bullseyes further east because we're able to understand these better. We have better data, better technology.
And now that you say that, I do feel like maybe the modern age smartphone, and here lately, especially with social media, you see it. And I hadn't said it on this podcast. I've been a firefighter in the EMS previous, so I still follow a lot of the fire and EMS stuff, and these news media and fire, they're pushing it more. Hey, if you see hail, report it. If you see winds up to this speed, report it. And I think that might go to where you're talking about. I mean, 15 years ago, people couldn't have took photos on their phone and uploaded it or texted it to these news media. So that's a good point that you bring. Like the smaller ones may have went unnoticed.
Absolutely. And there's a lot more people that live out east than in the central part of the country. And we have the technology to detect these tornadoes on radar. You take a brief lived EF0, EF1 tornado, and you move it through, an area with a lot of trees, like in Georgia, Alabama, and the Carolinas, you'll be able to detect that on radar where nobody's around to see it. And then the National Weather Service can go to that location and find the downed trees and survey that tree damage. If that happens out there in Kansas, it's just a barren field. So you're not going to have that method of detection working in your advantage as much out there as it is. So it's a very interesting topic of conversation because, really we've only studied weather patterns for such a small fraction of the history of Earth. We only have detailed records going back to 1950, which is not even 100 years. So
Right.
it can still be debated. Like there's a lot of theories that that there's these 30-year cycles of tornado activity. So are we just in a different period of this 30-year cycle where it all goes back and forth? So I mean, it's still something that we're studying and learning and figuring out. So personally, I don't believe that it's necessarily shifting in the sense that there's going to be no more tornadoes in Kansas, Oklahoma traditional tornado alley anymore, and now it's all going to be over here. I just think we're documenting them and understanding them better. So we're starting to record more of them. So yes, they happen more often than we previously thought. But it's not that they weren't happening before. It's just that we weren't realizing that, hey, these are tornadoes, these little weak ones.
So what kind of technology are you toting around and in your vehicle, and you going through all these towns and cities? Are you relying on just Verizon or AT&T, or like are you using all of them?
Right now, I am only utilizing AT&T, but I do have plans to upgrade to get multiple carriers. I'm actually saving and budgeting for it. Hopefully, in the next few months here, I plan to get Starlink eventually. Right now, I'm just using AT&T, so it's hit and miss. It's great for download, uploading, and streaming is a little bit inferior there. But as far as technology goes, I'm kind of an old fuddy duddy. In that department, I'm pretty bare bones, laptop, cell phone. Like a lot of storm chasers are tech geeks as well. Me, I do not care for the technology side of things. Things are always updating, breaking, downloading this, upgrading this, new version that. This isn't compatible with this. That type of stuff drives me nuts.
Yeah.
So I am not one with the knowledge of the tech world, I use it because it makes my life easier and it helps me get the job done. But if it all went away, I wouldn't be upset about it. I started chasing before all this stuff was there. So it's like, at least I kind of got used to it, at least for a couple of years. But it's there, so you might as well use it, right? But I'm definitely not a tech guy. I'm the guy that when my computer breaks, I got to ask people for help.
I heard that. What are you using camera wise? Like mostly smartphone, or you using like? I mean, this age of technology during the daytime, I know during nighttime would be totally different on storms, but it is mind blowing how some of these cameras are on some of these smartphones now.
Yeah, I use the iPhone. Great camera. I do have some Sony camcorders here. I had an AX77 last year, but the New Mexico back roads broke the floating lens. I guess they were too bumpy. So that camera now is broken for this season. I have not replaced it yet. I spent all my money on a truck. So this year I have an old Sony XR500 that I'm still using as a backup. So that camera still works.
Sony makes some good cameras.
They do. Sony makes great cameras, except for that floating lens. That thing is a little bit problematic in the world of storm chasing because we mount our cameras to the windshield. So when we're going down a bumpy road, that lens is going like this. It doesn't seem to. They don't seem to survive very long. So if you're a chaser, I would stay away from the floating lens cameras because we seem to go through those pretty quick. But I love the Sony cameras. They're great cameras.
I got a list here that I was going down. I jotted down some stuff. What's some of the best things that you've seen out of tornadoes and chasing? I know there's destruction, and we know that people lose their lives every day with tornadoes. But what is some of the good stuff that you see out of it?
Well, putting the weather aspect of it aside, obviously for me, beautiful tornado, like did it again, like this picture here, that's the best. But when the unfortunate does happen, you see people come together like you never would before when it's needed to. And it really shows the good side of humanity. And people are just always willing to help. It's kind of a shame that it takes a disaster to bring that out in people. But when you see it, it kind of restores your faith in humanity a little bit. Like this is good. Everybody's coming together. Nobody cares what color you are. None of this social stuff that everybody argues about all day matters in these situations. Like I said, right. It stinks that that's what it takes to bring that out in people, but it does restore your faith in humanity a little bit. And then the hospitality out there. Whenever I visit these small towns, I mean, there's people who will literally just open up their homes to you, or they say, "Hey, we own a restaurant. Come in for a free meal. We appreciate what you do." And of course, I'll take them up on it. Someone will message me in the page, say, "Hey, I own a little cabin, a hunting lodge. You can stay there for the night." Or I own this local burger place in town. Stop by for a burger, and a beer. And that kind of hospitality is just awesome. There's a lot of good people out there. And I enjoy meeting them, talking with them, sharing and hearing their stories. Everybody's got one when it comes to weather.
So as the storms are starting to pick up, and it's obviously that's time of the year, what does people need to start doing? How do they get prepared? I mean, obviously watching and subscribing to channels and stuff like that, but what do they need? What would be some items that say, hey, if you live in these areas, you need to start preparing? Because things happen and people always say, well, I wasn't prepared. What do you tell people?
Well, these days it's very rare that a tornado or a storm goes unwarned. It does happen, but it's very, very rare. Now, I always tell people, like, have your trusted sources of information, whether it's me, your local meteorologist, the National Weather Service, and make sure they're good sources of information. They're credible. There's a lot of garbage information out there. So you have to be able to sift through the noise, the hype and the clickbait, and have good sources of information. And you have to check for the latest information, and you have to understand the information and not get complacent. More often than not, it's not going to happen. But don't think that because it didn't happen that we were wrong. It just because that leads to complacency. And that's the number one thing that causes people harm. Well, I didn't think it could happen to me. Or they were wrong the last 9 times. Well, it's not the 9 times that matter. It's the one time that does that matters. So don't ever think it can't happen to you, and don't allow yourself to become complacent. Understand what the forecast actually means. If we're highlighting a 100-mile area of tornado potential, that doesn't mean that whole area is going to see a tornado. It means some unlucky person in that area is going to see a tornado. The odds are against you that it's not going to be you, but what if it is? It's just like the lottery. We play the lottery knowing we're probably not going to win, but we still play it for that little. Think of it like that. You're going against these odds that typically aren't going to have it happen for you, but what if? We play lottery because we all say, what if? What if it is me? Well, what if it is you when the tornado watch comes out? And then you just, you have your ways to receive information, weather radio, cell phone. There's more ways to get information than ever before. TV, radio, phones. I mean, there's just endless ways to get it. Know what those sources are and know how to use them. Reach out to people to help you if you don't understand something. And then just, when it comes time, just pay attention. It ain't over until that storm has passed. Know where to go in your house. Where is your safe place? Basement, interior room, closet, bathroom, interior room. Put as many walls between you and the storm as possible. If you're ever unsure of where to go, the best rule of thumb to follow is put as many walls between you and the storm as possible. So know where that is in your place of residence or your place of work or wherever you spend a lot of time at. And that's typically what I tell people.
What's the difference between warnings and watches?
So I like to use this analogy when I get that question. A watch means conditions are favorable. The storm hasn't developed yet. The warning means the storm is already ongoing. But if that sounds confusing, I use the cookie jar analogy. Now imagine you're a kid, right? And you want to go into a cookie jar. What does your mom say when they don't watch you? Hey, I'm watching you. And you back off. You go back to the cookie jar again. Your mom says, hey, I'm watching you. Don't do that. And then you get a little bit more risky and you put your hand in the cookie jar and your mom says, I'm warning you. Which one is more serious?
I've never heard the cookie jar explanation, but I'll probably never forget that from now on. Every time I see warning, I'm going to be starting to pull my hand back. I'm going to be like, oh, I better get my hand back from the cookie jar. I mean, but I could see that's a great way to explain that to my kids, because my daughter has the radar app on her phone and it'll notify her and she gets upset. On one side of me, I want to take the app off so it doesn't affect her. But on the other hand, if she's somewhere, I want her to know about it, which that I'm going to explain that to her tonight. I'm like, Adam told me the difference with a cookie jar. And that's something that I've never heard that before. So appreciate that.
Oh, no problem. It's a question I get a lot, is what the difference between a watch and a warning is. And for me, it's kind of surprising how many people, I live with this stuff every day. So I'm like, wow, the watch and the warning thing, there's still a lot of confusion surrounding that. So that's kind of the way that I've always explained it, because the warning, if you don't understand the differences, just know that the warning is the more serious one.
I really like that example. That's pretty cool. Was it this week? I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday that somewhere got a blizzard warning and a tornado warning all at the same time.
Yeah, that was in Northwest Kansas.
I mean, how often does that happen?
It's pretty rare. Usually, you'll sometimes see them in close proximity with a very dynamic, tight system. But to have the blizzard warning in the tornado warning, yeah, that's pretty. You don't see that too often. I want to say it was near Colby, Kansas. I think it was. It was Northwest Kansas for sure.
If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw you post about it. It's like, well, you don't see this very often. I'm like,
yeah, I did post about it because I was like, wow.
is that a debris storm or is that just snow blowing everywhere? The
Mhm.
abominable snowman flying around in the air.
Right. That is a testament to how rapidly weather can change for sure.
That is true. Now, weather is always dangerous. Um, I got some other stuff, so I gonna pull it up on the screen here, and we could talk about it too. How people gotta find my mouse, find which side of the screen it's on here. I'm gonna add it here. So here is make it a little bit bigger there. I guess my mouse died. I'm gonna have to use the mouse on the keyboard. So how can people follow you? I got a couple of social media sites here. I got X, which some people would call Twitter, X, Facebook, and YouTube. So, is this the main places that they could follow you on?
Yes, I am most active on Facebook, but I'm on all the social channels. Pretty much any channel you want. If you just type my name, you'll find me. Storm Chaser, Adam Lucio, or Adam Lucio WX, which is like the universal abbreviation for weather. I don't know how that came to be. That's just what we use. That's what the WX means. So yeah, just my name in any social channel, and you should be able to find me there.
And then this is where I was watching, some of the stuff on the version 3.0.
Mhm.
And this was something I saw very interesting earlier this morning. Um, my brother-in-law and my mother-in-law, they're going to watch this solar eclipse, and we watched it when it came through South Carolina, but they're traveling to go watch this one. And I saw this one when you posted it earlier today, and I thought about sharing it to them, but I was like, I'm not going to get their hopes squashed yet. And it and like I'm pretty sure. Let me click it here. Right there, it's basically saying, "Hey, let's don't get everything out of control yet. It's still some time out, but is the clouds going to affect this solar eclipse?"
Unfortunately, it does look like clouds are going to be an issue that day, but, and that's what I explain in the post, is at this point, it is way too soon to know exactly where that's going to be. The only thing we can look at right now is we can look at the background upper air pattern. And there are certain upper air patterns that support active weather and upper air patterns that support quiet weather. It looks like we're going to be in an upper air pattern that supports active weather. So
Mm.
there's going to be multiple troughs, multiple storm systems swinging through the country the first 10 days of April. That much we have pretty high confidence on. Unfortunately, with storm systems and troughs, that means clouds. So we're going to have waves of clouds moving across the path in that time frame. Now, what we won't know for at least probably another 5, 6, 7 days is where exactly are those individual ripples of clouds and storm systems going to be. Each model run looks greatly different. The one I posted today shows Southwest Texas and Maine being in the clear. The one I posted yesterday showed Arkansas being in the clear. And we're going to see that kind of model flip flopping, that back and forth for at least the next 5 days. So any cloud cover map, including the ones that I post, are definitely not going to be the exact way that it shows up on eclipse day. So what I'm trying to reiterate to folks now is that it does look like it's going to be an active weather period around that time. So unfortunately for some, the clouds are going to be an issue. We just don't know who that some is. If we were seeing a weather pattern, we're like, oh man, it looks like the first week of April is going to be quiet, sunny weather for everybody. It'd be like, yay, we'd be able to see that in the upper air pattern. There's different weather patterns that you look for. That is not what we're seeing right now, unfortunately. I hope it can change. Sometimes it does. But right now, the signal's been pretty consistent that it's going to be an active first 10 days of April with multiple storm systems moving across the country. So, unfortunately, I think it's going to be a difficult event for some folks to witness. I hope I'm wrong about that, but that's just not what we're seeing in the data right now.
Hey, it goes back to that moon stuff, man. I'm telling you, there's some weird stuff goes on with the moon.
Mm.
Never know. And somewhere, I can't remember where I saw it. It was on a website, and they were talking about somewhere up in here where this solar eclipse and the last solar eclipse came together. The cicadas are going to be like crazy. These like two families of cicadas are going to come out, and it's going to be like the loudest cicada event ever.
Yeah, my home state of Illinois is in like in the bullseye for that. There's two different cicada broods. I think one's
Right.
like the 17-year and the other's like the 14-year or
I
something.
mean, how crazy is that bug
Yeah.
going around? Like, I mean,
They just happen to overlap this year. You know, it's just one of those things, those coincidences of nature.
and when them things start making noise, I mean, they are loud.
Yeah, they're loud. I like cicadas. They're cool bugs. I put them
Oh
on my
yeah.
shoulder and they sit there. They make good bass bait too. Get one around your hook. Oh, them largemouth bass love them cicadas.
That's right. I mean, I would much rather trade them and their noise for mosquitoes. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
mosquitoes and
Wasps.
gnats. Our
Wasps too.
mosquitoes are like the size of turkeys. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So, how is 2024 looking weather-wise? Is it going to be like a very active?
All signals point to an active year. A little bit slow to start, and that's what we've seen. Even though we've had some tornado events recently, we're actually below normal for tornado count right now. So, despite we had the significant tornadoes in Ohio, last week, and that gets everybody thinking like, oh my God, it's such a crazy active year. It's like, well, no, that was just one bigger event. Right now, we're actually below average in terms of tornado numbers. It's been kind of quiet. I've had a slower year for tornadoes than my last like 4 seasons. I've only got one so far this year. By now, in the last few years, I've had like 3, 4, or 5. So even for me, it's been a little bit slower. But we think in the middle to late April, getting into May, that's going to turn around as we transition from La Nina towards El Nino. Those transition years tend to be a little bit more volatile and active than other years. We saw this in 2010 and 2016, but 2016 was also a below year, but it had a very active period. That's kind of how we're thinking this year is going to play out. So I'm expecting things to really ramp up in late April and into May. It could be a year where the traditional peak season is the bulk of the activity. May has actually been pretty quiet these last couple of years. I don't think that's going to be the case this year.
That kind of scares me. I got some traveling the later part of April into May, and I'm going to be going through Tornado Alley, and I'm definitely going to be watching the weather as I travel for sure.
Well, if you see 3.0 blast in front of you, you might want to stop.
Well, like, who's that black Ford behind me? Nope, I'm moving out of the way.
Yep.
So anything not weather related, but anything new coming in 2024? Anything that you're looking for? Obviously, 3.0. Any kind of upgrades? Anything new? Is there going to be like a new line of T-shirts or anything new that people could look out for?
Well, my partner Chelsea, she has a line of T-shirts. I'm wearing one now. It says "Mood." That's pretty cool. I myself probably not doing anything like that. Really, this year for me, it's all about getting 3.0 built and getting the equipment up and ready. I think that's going to consume the bulk of my year, and then when we get into 2025 and beyond, we'll start seeing where else I can take things. I've got a lot of things that I need to get built. I need a new video camera. I need a new photography camera. I have to finish the 3.0 build, and I think that's going to consume the bulk of my year. I need to build this multi-network streaming setup like we talked about earlier with multiple cell carriers, Starlink. That has to be built. So that's going to be my primary focus for this year. So I probably won't be stepping too far out of that box in the short term, but there's always something new coming down the pike for sure.
So if Elon watches this on either one of our channels, which would probably be your channel over mine, my man needs some internet. Hook him up.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll take that mobile Starlink for $1,000 a month. That's an expensive thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure you got people and sponsors and stuff that help you out too. If not,
Crowdsourcing, yeah, I have a lot of generous followers. I have no sponsors. I don't know. I'm
which
too small. I
for a
guess.
side for a side fee on a window, he would be glad to sponsor whatever.
Sure,
We'll make it
absolutely.
look like a NASCAR vehicle going down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, there's some out there that are doing that. So,
Yeah.
any way to
Hey,
help
I mean,
fund the storm chasing,
hey, you saw it at the beginning of my channel. Every little bit helps. I mean, it
it,
it
it sure
it takes
does.
it takes a village to raise an idiot. I mean,
You got that right. To support that storm chasing fool. And I have a lot of
yeah,
generous followers. I'm very thankful for them. Subscribers, I do the subscriber thing. Very generous. It helps me more than they know.
you know. And I know earlier you was talking about money, and I know if you got a chief financial officer like my wife, she'd be like, "All right, we're cutting it back this month." So, and I'm sure your expenses is well more than my hunting adventures. But um, anything else you like? I had you on for an hour. Anything else you would like to talk about or mention before we get off?
Well, we covered a lot of great stuff. I would just like to remind people that we are moving into severe weather season. So, stay tuned to your local sources. Take the watches and warnings seriously. Nobody has to get hurt in these weather events. There's a lot. I get a lot of folks who they have storm anxiety. And I have a hard time understanding that because I love storms, but you don't have to fear it if you understand it. So, we're here to help you learn and understand, and that helps you be better prepared. Because when you're afraid, you put it in the back of your mind, and that helps you not be prepared. So just seek out the information, pay attention to the information, understand the information. Nobody has to get hurt.
That's good. And remember, he's on 3 social medias. Follow him. Make sure that you follow him. And I know on social media, sometimes when you're looking on your feed, you might see something. It might have been 2 days ago. If you're in a storm, look for like he said, the current information, up to date information.
And that's important because some of these social media channels, they'll recycle posts that are 2-3 days old, and I hate when they do that.
Right.
Because somebody will comment I post a tornado warning, and then 3 days later somebody comments it like, is this now? And it's like, no. They'll always check the time and the date of the post that you're looking at, because
Right.
the sites do that. They recycle some of that old information. So always check the date and the time that stuff was posted.
That algorithm, man, that algorithm on them social medias are always, I don't think we'll ever learn them, but
No,
yes.
live by the algo, die by the algo. Don't we
Yeah.
know it?
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I want you to stay safe out there. I love following you along on social media. Um, y'all go like his channels, follow him on Twitter, which is X now. Follow him on Facebook. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube for him. That's how
Yes.
it helps him. So follow along, help him out. And I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right. Well, y'all heard it. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care, everybody.